All right, welcome back to another episode of the Podium Pusher podcast. As always, my name is Justin. I'm here with Brandon. Welcome to part one of our very first ever two-part series. Today, we're going through our predictions of the 2024 driver standings. We had a surprise livery launch from McLaren yesterday, which officially means the 2024 Formula One season is upon us, and we're here to talk about it. Brandon, how you feeling today?
Feeling great. Wasn't expecting the livery launch from McLaren, but it looks really good and made me really excited to record this podcast and kick off the 2024 season.
Not what we're talking about today, but I thought the livery launch was good. I thought it was a nice combination between their livery last year and like the chrome livery they ran for a couple races. So I know it's similar to what they ran last year, but I like it. I think it's nice.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm excited to get to see the rest of the livery launches starting in February, but maybe sooner. Who knows? Maybe we'll get
Maybe
another
sooner.
surprise.
Who knows? All right, let's jump into this. We'll go back and forth. Who do you have as your P20 in the driver's standing next year?
So P20 in the driver's standings is going to be, as much as it pains me to say this, Logan Sargent. He did get a contract extension with Williams for the 2024 season. He was the last driver to sign, I believe. And well, I think Logan did show a lot of improvement over the season. I'm just not sure that Williams as a team and Logan are on the, high enough trajectory for Logan to get out of the P20. I do think he is going to score more points this year, but I'm going to say that he stays in P20.
Yeah, I think that is a great prediction. Definitely can't agree with a lot of those points, but my P20, I've gone for Kevin Magnussen. We were talking about our podcast prep, and I said I could be convinced to not put Logan Sargent P20. And just for the sake of being able to say that I got this prediction right, if it happened, I'm going to make it, put Kevin Magnussen in P20. I went and looked at the standings from last year as I was making these. Kevin Magnussen only scored 3 points last season, so that was only 2 more points than Logan Sargent, and Logan Sargent didn't start being viably competitive until like the last 5 races of the season. And so, I just think Kevin Magnussen got whooped by his teammate last year. I think the Haas changes are coming way too close to the start of the season to see any crazy amount of change. Like, it's not like their new team principal is having any meaningful impact on the like core concepts of the car that would have been decided months ago. And so even if operationally things get better at Haas, I don't know if pace will immediately get better at Haas. And so I just think Kevin Magnussen was perhaps re-signed too soon in comparison to Logan Sargent being signed too late. But I've got him at P20.
Yeah, I can definitely see that. I think that the brightest point in the pace of the Haas last season was their qualifying pace. And unfortunately, Kevin wasn't even able to make do with any of that last season. And he was often qualifying poorly, which led him to not be able to pick up potential points when they were available, unlike Nico, who made quite a few Q3 appearances and was able to kind of pick up the scraps when things didn't go well for other teams in the front. So I definitely can see that. That leads us perfectly to my P19 prediction, which is Kevin Magnussen. So I think that Kevin is going to do just enough, just kind of similar to last season. Not a lot of change in my predictions from the bottom couple from last season to 2024. But I think Kevin will do just enough to hold on to P19 above Logan Sargent and scrape up the last few points that are available. So
My P19 is Logan Sargent. So we agree on who is going to be the bottom 2 people in the standings. Actually, just have different orders. I think the Williams car will be better enough than the Haas to help Logan Sargent get a couple more points. I think his experience will help him get a couple more points. Obviously, he came close in Bahrain last year, and that was because he had all that testing and was more familiar with the track. Now that we're going to all these tracks that he's been at before, I think maybe that might help him scrape up a couple more P10s. And so I think obviously both of them will score like 3-4 points apiece. But I think Logan Sargent will come out on top in that battle to take P19 over Kevin Magnussen. P18, who you got?
For P18, I have got Guan Yu Zhou. So again, no change from last year there, but I think that we're going to see a lot more of the same level of mediocrity from, I guess, Kick Sauber now instead of Alfa Romeo. But I think we're going to see kind of similar level of just kind of scraping by, having a lot of weekends where nobody really remembers what they did because they're finishing right around the, I don't know, 12 to 16 range in the race, and that's not going to lead to a lot of points. I think Guan Yu will continue to show signs of being a better racer. I think he improved a lot over 2023, but unfortunately that didn't translate to a lot of points, and I think we'll see more of the same from him next year.
I agree. I also have put Guan Yu Zhou as my P18 for this next season. I want to believe that Sauber is going to be on an upward trajectory because of the Audi announcement, and that's coming in 2 years. But since the announcement has come and they've started changing personnel and putting all that stuff in place, there hasn't been any upward trajectory from the team already. Like, I have no reason to believe that any kind of upward trajectory is coming for 2024. There's going to be nothing to believe in them. I think for the first half of 2023, Guan Yu Zhou had improvement, but I definitely think he kind of stalled out at the end of 2023 and was kind of like not doing anything to comprehensively beat Valtteri Bottas. And so I do unfortunately think that this is probably going to be his last year in Formula One unless something crazy happens. And I think he's going to take P18.
Well, my P17 prediction is going to be Nico Hülkenberg. So that's one place down from where he finished last year. I think the Haas team as a whole, echoing kind of what you said earlier, but I think they have made some changes that may be positive for the future, but again, not enough to change the course of the ship for the 2024 season. So I think we're going to see Nico Hülkenberg drop a spot and take P17 in the 2024 driver standings.
P17, I've got Valtteri Bottas. Probably a lot of the same things along similar lines as what I said about Guan Yu Zhou. Just not seeing a lot of improvement out of the Sauber F1 team, and I don't know what's going on with Valtteri. I think he's just taken the finish route to retirement and just enjoying his Sunday drives. Every now and then he like pops a weekend out that you're like, what the heck is going on? He just qualified like 8th and finished 6th. Huh? And so I think that will be like the majority of his points. He'll finish like 18th, 19th, 14th, 6th, 20th. And he'll be like, what do you mean? And so I'm sure he'll get like 2 or 3 of those, and that'll be his points, but not going to be enough to vault him any higher than P17. P16, who you got?
P16, I have Valtteri Bottas. Echoing what you said, not a lot of upward trajectory. I think he's more focused on finishing second place in cycling races than he is on racing this year. So I think, P16, they'll have a couple of standout weekends where he, gets the points. Maybe at the beginning of the season. I think we tended to see a lot of that the last couple of years of where drivers that finished lower in the standings maybe had a couple good weekends in Bahrain, Jeddah, and maybe Australia, and then after that everybody else kind of caught up to him, figured it out, and they didn't. So I think that's kind of what we'll see from Valtteri in P16 this year.
My P16 is Nico Hülkenberg. I agree with a lot of the things that you said about him, but have him one place higher than you put him. I think he will continue to have some of the qualifying success that he had the year before. And I'm actually hoping for him that the operational changes at Haas will be in his benefit. I think he lost some points just with the Haas being so awful on tires and then being stuck on a poor tire strategy with them being awful on the tires. So I'm hoping that those structural changes in Haas can maybe lead to some better race strategies for him, just better weekends overall. that might lead to 1 or 2 more point scoring finishes for him.
Hopefully so. I do like to watch Nico race, and I think he is a very good driver. So I hope that he can find success this year. All right, for P15, this might be kind of a shocker, but this is my first big change in my predictions from last year to this year. I have Esteban Ocon dropping 3 places from where he finished last year. But I think we're going to see a lot of improvement from the teams that were on the up and up in the second half of the season last year. And I think Alpine is going to be kind of not necessarily taking a step back, but not taking as big of a step forward as some of the other teams are. And I think particularly with Esteban, I think Pierre's going to beat him pretty consistently this year. And I think that will lead to frustration and maybe a little bit of desperation for decision making on his part. So I think that'll cause him to miss out on a few opportunities for points, and he's going to finish P15 in the standings. I could be totally wrong, but it's kind of just what I'm feeling about Esteban.
I could see it. We definitely saw Pierre get the upper hand on Esteban in the second half of the season, and if it had been that second half over the course of the season, he would have beaten him pretty comprehensively. So I could definitely see that. Esteban's also not known for the best decision-making when under pressure, so I think you make some valid points there. My P15 also is a crazy change from last year. I've got Lance Stroll at P15, which is quite the drop from where he finished. I think it's down 6 positions. But I unfortunately don't see Aston Martin being as good this year as they were last year. Obviously, their developments during the season were so bad that at the end of the year, they decided to take them off and go back to the car that they had in the middle of the year. Unfortunately, that doesn't give me great confidence that they were developing the next year's car in the right direction as well, because obviously if they thought those upgrades were bringing them success around the time they would start to think about the 2024 car. So I don't know if it's going to be as good. And with that, Lance Stroll couldn't even take advantage of the car when Fernando Alonso's getting podiums every week. So if it becomes a fringe points car, then I think Lance Stroll is gonna struggle to consistently score points. I think he'll be around 12th and 13th most races, and that'll just lead to him kind of finishing in the middle of the bottom half of the standings.
Yeah, I definitely can see that. I kind of think the same thing about Aston Martin, but we'll talk about that more in a little bit. But yeah, let's see. P14, I have Alex Albon. I think that kind of what I was talking about earlier, the Williams car isn't going to be in a great spot. I think Alex is going to have another good year of getting the most out of the car when he can. And I think, unfortunately, it's just not going to be enough to get him into any higher than P14. Last year, he finished P13. But just with the development of some other teams, I think that they'll kind of leave Williams in the dust, and Alex will kind of be maybe finishing on the fringe of the points, 11th through 13th for a lot of the races. And even though they were good drives, didn't result in any points. But yeah, so we've got P14. Who do you have?
I agree, and also have Alex Albon P14, and go by the same logic. As you guys can probably tell, we have not mentioned any drivers from a certain team so far. And so I believe a lot of Alex Albon's P8s and P9s will unfortunately get bumped out by the developments of a certain team. And so, yeah, I think he will be getting a lot of 11th and 12th place finishes. I think it'll be another one of those years where it's hard to judge where the Williams is, because I think, obviously, as you can tell, I think he will comprehensively beat Logan Sargent again. Obviously, you do as well. And so it'll be hard to tell if that P11 is great and he just outdrove the car by 2 or 3 positions, or if that's where the car should be and Alex Albon is just doing, what he should be doing in the car. So I think that it's unfortunate when it comes to judging Alex Albon in that way, but I think he doesn't mind it. He doesn't mind having an easy job beating his teammate every weekend. But
Yeah.
I think we will still see the standout drives from Alex that he got this year. But I just think maybe those fringe point scores will go down a little bit, and he might drop a little bit in the driver standings. But P4 team still respectable in Williams, and will probably help them not finish last in the constructors, which is really what they're after. Get that money, help them continue their upward trajectory. I believe in James Vowles. I think he's one of the best team principals out there, but I just think other teams might be improving a little bit more.
Yeah, we'll see it. I think it'll be interesting to see over the next like 3 or 4 years where the Williams goes. I think they're definitely on the right track with James Vowles, and I think he's made some good changes for the team, but we'll see how long those changes kind of take for there to be actual improvement on the pace of the car and all that stuff. Yeah. All right.
13.
13. Here we go. I have Yuki Tsunoda. So this is a one-place jump from where he finished last year. I think the AlphaTauri has kind of switched to being more of that are developing on their own, kind of using parts and pieces from the older Red Bull cars. And as you know, last year's Red Bull was very fast. And so I think seeing, the AlphaTauri basically hopefully be immersion at, an RB19, essentially. I think Yuki is going to be able to finish a lot higher, more consistently, but I think we may see him be beat by his teammate a little bit, and that gets some frustrations out, and it may lead to some poor decisions, some crashes, which Yuki has been known to do in the past. So I think we'll kind of see a little bit more of his immaturity start to come back a little bit once he's in a situation that might be frustrating too. So that's my P13 prediction.
I agree with you. My P13 is also Yuki Tsunoda. I think back to 2020 when AlphaTauri was using pretty much the Red Bull car from 2019. 2019 was the first year that Red Bull kind of looked like it was starting on the viable challenger car. Obviously, 2017, 2018, they could win a couple races, but no one thought that they could win the championship. And then 2019 is when Max won 3 races in the season for the first time, and they're on their upward trajectory. And then AlphaTauri used that car the next year, and Pierre Gasly went off in 2020. And so I can only imagine what that team is going to do with a championship-winning car that they have been gifted. And obviously, all the higher-ups at Red Bull and AlphaTauri have said that they're going to be using as much of the RB19 as possible, which pretty much means they'll be driving an RB19 painted in white navy or whatever colors AlphaTauri, Racing Bulls, whatever the team name is officially next year. But I also agree with you that I think he will have that odd weekend that you're like, what's going on, Yuki? I think back to Mexico this year where he was stuck behind Oscar Piastri, and he had a great recovery drive from having to change his components and then getting frustrated behind Oscar and having contact with him multiple times, resulting in him spinning out. And so, that was a big throwaway of points for himself and the team. I think he'll have the occasional weekend like that next season that might prevent him from finishing high up as he truly could.
All right, let's see. P12, I have Lance Stroll. I think I agree with a lot of what you said about Lance earlier. I think that maybe the Aston Martin won't have as bad of a season. Maybe, I think maybe they start off in a bad place and they figure it out development-wise during the season, and that maybe allows Lance to kind of pick up some points towards the end of the season and finish P12. But I think we'll see definitely a kind of a Aston Martin being a little bit stagnant this season on their development from year over year with the end of last season. So I think that'll cause us to to see Lance in P12.
Well, this is very interesting because my P12 is Esteban Ocon. So we have switched where we put Lance Stroll and Esteban Ocon on our list. I think that he will definitely be beaten by Pierre Gasly, obviously by him being put lower than him. But I just feel like Alpine will be in a similar place that they were last year, just kind of in that no man's land between P9 and P13, P14, and then just like kind of fighting nobody for fifth in the constructor standings, kind of just stranded on an island in the middle of that. And so I think Esteban will just kind of have an average season, and just P12 is just kind of forgettable for him, I guess. And that's kind of just been the story of Alpine over the past couple of seasons.
Yeah, I definitely agree. I think they'll kind of just cruise on by. Esteban will probably get signed for another 2-3 years. Pierre will probably get another 2-3 year extension, and we'll just kind of see what happens as they continue to just kind of float in the middle. Yeah. So that brings me to my P11 prediction. A perfect segue. I have Pierre Gasly in P11, which is no change from where he finished last year in driver's standings. But I think that, like we were just talking about, a lot of just cruising through the middle, P9 to P14, finished probably like fifth, sixth in the constructor standings. And, Pierre may have a podium, one weekend. Esteban may have a podium one weekend, but they're not going to show anything consistent enough to really finish any higher than that in driver standings.
I think Pierre Gasly is definitely interesting. I didn't know where to put him. I didn't put him P11, but like I can't decide if he's going to be like the most consistent driver next year and beat Esteban Ocon every weekend, or if he's going to like have random weekends where he finishes, P5 and then just like kind of 12th, 13th the rest of the time. It's definitely, Alpine is so hard to predict because they're just so average that I don't know what they're gonna do. My P11, I have gone for someone who used to drive for Alpine when they were Renault. Daniel Ricciardo is my P11. I really wanted to put him inside the top 10. I just couldn't do it in my heart because he will be driving AlphaTauri, and as much as we're talking about them driving the RB19, they were still one of the worst cars last year, and I think they're going to take a massive upswing this year, but nothing is guaranteed. But still think he's going to have a great year. I think being in a car that drives like a Red Bull will be incredible for him. I think him having a full off season to get reinvented into that team will be incredible for him. And I just think that he's going to be driving a car that he can feel confident in, and we'll be seeing a lot more performances like we saw in Mexico. I think he was just feeling it that weekend, and the car was all set up right, and he got to drive a car that he liked how it felt. And I think getting to do that for a full season will lead to a lot of success for Daniel Ricciardo.
Yeah, I'm really, really excited to see him drive the AlphaTauri this year, and I think I completely echo everything you said. But we'll have to wait until part 2 to see where I put him. Did I put him in P5? Do I have him winning the championship? I don't know. We'll see. But I'm really excited to see him drive a car that he's confident in, and a car that maybe suits his driving style a little bit better. His aggressive late braking. So yeah, we'll see. But it's going to be a great season for him next year, regardless of where we predict him. So
yeah, I'm pretty sure it's going to be a Max Verstappen, Daniel Ricciardo 1-2 RB20, RB19 next year. That's what we're looking at.
Yeah.
But that brings us to the end of part 1. Stay tuned for part 2 as we finish P10 to P1 of our driver standings. Thanks for coming along for this episode. We had a lot of fun getting to talk to you guys about it, and we will see you next time for part 2. See ya.
Yeah.